So somebody just, 2, 3 days back, messaged me that they are not comfortable with multisim. That is their experience as far as EDA is concerned. So I thought it to have a session on multisim will be a welcome break for you all from the things that we have been doing. So is that fine with you, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let me switch to multisim. Okay. Do you see the multisim screen, guys? Guys, do you see the
Yes, sir.
multisim screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now by this time,
Yes.
many of you are quite comfortable with multisim. For those who are not, please pay attention. What exactly is it expected for you to do during the practicals? Okay. First of all, there is a list of practicals that I would hand over to you. Okay. And using multisim, you are supposed to carry out or conduct the practical in a systematic manner. Please don't copy the practicals, the reports from other students. All right. Probably the very first thing that we did today, the other day, was the types of amplifiers. Okay. For example, this particular model we have already seen. Now, first of all, understand the various categories of components. You have to understand the categories of components. In multisim, we have different components. So if you click on place and components, click on components, you will see a collection of group of the components. So all these components and devices, they are grouped into different families, for example. Okay. And if I talk about the groups, they are classified into groups. The very first group is the source. The second group is basic, diodes, transistors, and so on and so forth. So all the other groups, probably the name themselves are sufficient for you to understand what the components, where to search for the components. A very difficult task many times is that you have to find out a certain component, and you, since there is a huge database of components in multisim, it becomes virtually impossible to locate it within the given time. So it is better to understand the anatomy of the database, basically. Okay, so the database is grouped into various different sections. So the very first section is the group is the sources. Now please remember that there are various different types of sources, which unfortunately is not explicitly taught to you, but you have come to know of it during various different courses. For example, the power sources. Now here in this power sources, whenever we want a power, so we want to power a particular circuit. For example, if you're talking about the DC power, this is going to be the battery, the supply. Okay, so this is going to be the DC voltage. This is where you're going to generate or get the DC voltage to power up your circuit. Then you have the ground. These two are mostly used by us. Okay, now they have given various different other sources also, specifically this power source. Now if you click on this power source, let me just clear this off and start a new session so that it is easier for us to understand things. So if I click on this and power, so you can see here that it is giving us 120 volts RMS 60 hertz. Now this is an American software, so naturally their power source is 120 volts and 60 hertz, whereas in India and in most of the countries, in other parts of the other countries, other part of the world, we use 230 volts and 50 hertz. So the very first thing that you have to do is to change this to 230 volts. and 50 hertz. Please don't forget to do that. Okay. Now, once you do that, then you can directly see. Let us have ground. Please remember that you cannot have any floating component. So always you have to have a ground. Okay. All right. Now, if I want to check the waveforms, okay, there is a panel here which gives a lot of there are a lot of tool icons over here, and of that we select the oscilloscope, for example. Now by default it is a 2-channel oscilloscope. Okay, you don't have to bother about the external trigger unless and until the application demands it. All right. So if I want to check the output waveform, what do I have to do is simply connect it here. Okay, the other part is connected here. It is just like a cable that you have, oscilloscope probe as it is called, and I'm just connecting the probe here. Many times you don't do it directly in the lab. Okay, since we are talking about simulation here, this is fine. Okay, 230 volts you don't directly connect to the oscilloscope. Many times you require an isolation transformer or something like that. All right. Okay. Now the other part, the other lead of the probe is connected to ground. Even if you don't do this here, it is assumed that you are connecting it to the ground. Okay, so you can leave it like that. But just for the sake of completeness, we will use it like this. Okay, and now then I can double click on this and see. Now again, there are various different analysis types. One is the interactive simulation, DC operating point, AC sweep, transient. Many of these are we have not yet addressed those, but then some of them at least you have used, like interactive simulation you have used DC operating point. You may not have used DC operating point. AC sweep definitely you have used. Transient you have used. Okay, DC sweep you have used. Okay, maybe temperature sweep also you have used. So all these are specific analysis which cater to a particular set of parameters for testing the circuit. Okay, the easiest thing is the interactive simulation. Why it is called as interactive simulation is because you can simply while the simulation is running, you can simply modify it. Okay, and then see the changes. Now here we'll first of all see the simulation, that you'll see that the oscilloscope is now showing us. So if I change the time base here, if I change the voltage scale, this is what you're going to see. Okay. Now, in order to have a stable waveform, first of all, you have to shift it to DC. Now remember, this part is also very important. Okay. The AC, the coupling, this is called as a coupling. So AC coupling, ground. If I click on ground, you will not get any signal. Okay. If I click on AC or DC, it's fine here because there is no DC content here. Okay, AC is fine. Now suppose I want to stabilize this waveform. So many times it is not possible for us to directly stabilize the waveform. So you can go for a single shot mode in order to make the measurements. Okay, look carefully here. We are having these cursors over there. Okay, so you can either use this cursor. If I want to find out the peak to peak value, what do? I simply use this particular cursors to find out the peak to peak value. Now this is cursor number 1, cursor number 2. Okay, now you can see the difference over here. It is 322.167 volts. Actually, the placement of the cursor is not really accurate from here, this point of view. So it may be a slightly different than the actual theoretical value. Actually, it is supposed to be how much? Yes. How do you convert RMS to peak to peak? Guys,
Divided by √2.
divided by root 2, is it?
So into
Multiplied
√2.
by √2.
Multiplied.
Multiplied by what?
√2.
Root 2. Okay, then do it. Can you please do the calculation? 230 into square root of 2. What do you get? Come on, use your calculators. Come on.
So it's 325.27.
This is approximately the same thing that you are getting here. You see?
Yes, sir.
So the peak to peak
Yes, sir.
value is what? Peak to peak value is different. This is only the peak value. What you got is only the peak value. Then what is peak to peak value? $325 volts is only the peak value. Remember, we are interested in peak to peak value. So you have to either multiply this 230 by 2 root 2, okay, or you have to simply multiply the peak by 2. So you get about 650 volts.
647.
Yeah, 650 volts.
Yes, sir.
Approximately you're getting here 647 volts. So that actually tells us how to convert from RMS to peak and peak to peak. So many of you are really not aware of these things. So please make sure that you revise these concepts, because many times you will require this kind of conversion. All right. Now, how do you find out the
Yes, sir.
frequency? How do you find out the frequency? So I'll shift the cursor over here to the other peak. So distance between the peak is the period. You see that? So you can directly get here T2 minus T1 is about 20 milliseconds. So 20 milliseconds corresponds to what frequency? Guys? 20 milliseconds correspond to what frequency? If the period is 20 milliseconds, what is the frequency? Can you please calculate
50
that?
hertz.
Absolutely
50
correct.
hertz.
50 hertz. Yes,
These
sir.
are very basic things, I know, but you require some certain, many people require some sort this kind of refreshing their concepts. Okay, is that okay?
Yes,
So
sir.
this is how you make the measurements using the CRO. Now again, since right now we don't have access to a physical equipment, a CRO, this is the next best kind of an equipment that you can ever have using the simulation. So Multisim really is a very powerful tool. You must have already experienced that during our EDA course, that many of the circuits we could simulate and we could really tally the results with whatever theoretical calculations that we have done. Okay, so this is a very important. Why I'm stressing on simulation is, is because right from the beginning, like last 15 years, I've been stressing on simulation, because many students are number one a little bit afraid of working with the real hardware. They think that it may get damaged or something like that. Secondly, it may not be always practicable to hook up all the components physically and test them and so on and so forth. Third thing is that many students are lazy for even soldering and all that. They are not very comfortable with. So the best kind of study of the concepts will be there if you use multisim extensively in your course. Okay, so most of my in fact all of the circuits that we see, I have shown you the simulation as far as EDA was concerned. A similar thing goes for LIC also. In fact, LIC we require lots and lots of more simulation, different types of simulations also. Okay. Any doubts, any questions up to this point? Guys,
Sir, how do we use the scale?
which scale? This scale.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Channel A and B scale.
Okay. What exactly is the scale? See, it is the multiplying factor. Okay. It simply means one particular division. One particular division corresponds to how many volts? It is called as a vertical scale. So it is nothing but zooming in and zooming out the vertical scale. Okay.
Okay, sir.
It simply means that now this scale indicates, you can see here very clearly that when the scale is, this is what is it showing? It is showing 200 volts per division. It simply means that if you count the divisions in the vertical direction, okay, each division corresponds to 200 volts.
200 volts.
Okay. Is that okay with you?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So now you can, instead of using the cursor also, you can find out what is the peak to peak value. I'm just shifting this now. Okay. Now can you find out what is the number of divisions in vertical direction from peak to peak? Say from this peak to this peak, how many number of divisions are there? 1,
600.
2, 3.
3.
Okay. 3 divisions. But don't forget this also. Let me try to enlarge this screen. That will be much more easier. So if I have, so you can see here 1 division, 2 division and 3 division, and almost I'm having some, this is 3.5, so this will be nearly 3.25 divisions or 3.2 divisions. Okay, is that fine, this part?
Yes, sir.
See, how do you approximate it? This is the halfway point. Do you see the mouse cursor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is roughly the halfway point, and this is halfway between this halfway point, so a quarter of the point, so it may be about 0.25.
3.25.
So 3.25. So if you multiply this 3.25 by 200, what do you get? Yes?
650.
Yes? 650. Exactly. This is exactly what we had calculated or observed, isn't it? So this is the way you have to use this vertical scale. So this is, I'm just simply zooming up and down. So you can see here now the divisions are 500. The scale is 500 volts per division, and see how many divisions are there?
3.2.
3. Still 3.
No, sir. No, sir.
1.2.
1.25.
Let me just adjust it properly. So it will be somewhat about 1.25. So if you multiply this 1.25 by 500, what do you get? It's nearly 1.2, not 1.25 also. Maybe slightly here and there, but fine. So you will get the same kind of value. Okay? But you can see here that if I go on increasing, this is 1 kilovolts. So your accuracy of measurement will also decrease because the resolution is now a little bit poor. So as far as possible, you have to see to it that I'm having a good resolution so that I can measure. So this is how you can measure the voltage, peak to peak voltage, using a CRO. Now this is exactly the same kind of thing which you use in the laboratory. In fact, the simulation of of CRO is designed in such a way, the GUI is designed in such a way so that you can easily see the same thing in the real device. Okay, is that clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now in addition to that, this is the time base. What happens when you, this is zooming in the horizontal direction. You see what is happening?
Yes, sir.
So each division, each horizontal division corresponds to 5 milliseconds. Now this will give you a better picture. So I can shift the exposition also so as to align it with the peak. It is not always possible, but okay, roughly we'll align that. So this is one division, and where is the next peak? Okay, here, somewhere here. So can you calculate the number of divisions? See the number of divisions here. Horizontal divisions now. How many divisions are there?
Around 4.
It's slightly shifted. Yes, it is slightly shifted. So you can see here how many number of divisions are there now? 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 divisions multiplied by the scale. What do you get?
5.
5?
20 seconds.
20 milliseconds. Simply multiply the horizontal scale with the horizontal divisions. You get the, what you get is 20 milliseconds, which is the period of the signal. And from that you can find out the frequency. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Some things are
Yes, sir.
to be understood, memorized, in fact. And out of that, you'll see that always for 50 hertz, you have to always remember that the period is 20 milliseconds. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
One thing which we have not talked about is probably this coupling. What is this coupling? AC 0 DC. What do you mean by that? Now see, if I have a DC voltage in series with this, so I just reduce this. Okay, I'll just replace this with the signal source. Now see, it has changed to 1 volts and 1 kilohertz. Okay, and then I may have some kind of a DC content offset. It is called as. Let us say it is 2 volts. What does this mean? What have I done right now? This offset is what? It simply means that my AC signal, which is 1 kilohertz signal, it is riding on the top of a DC value of 2 volts. Are you able to understand this? Guys? Guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let us see how does it look like when I simulate it. Wait a moment. It's a very small signal. Why is it not happening? Why am I not getting the trace? Just a moment. Let me see what happened. Some problem with the software. This looks okay. Should have given me the signal. I'll just let me restart this. So here is our signal. All right. Now I said I'm going to add an offset of 2 volts here, and let us see what happens. What has happened? Guys, what has happened? Guys, are you there with me?
Yes, sir.
What? This AC signal is riding on the top of 2 volt signal, which is this line. Now, many times you want to see only the AC signal. So the coupling has to be only AC. It will bring it down to, it will remove the DC content. What do you think will be the coupling component? Think about that. When I shift to the AC coupling, what may be the component which is coming in picture? Yes? Which component blocks DC? Which component blocks DC? Guys? Guys, answer me.
Capacitor.
Capacitor. So obviously there has to be an internal capacitor in the oscilloscope which comes into the circuit once I use this kind of coupling. So it is called as AC coupling. Obviously it means that there is a capacitor in series over there. Okay, whereas in case of DC it is a direct coupling. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now there is another thing which is of importance, and that is, okay, I'll just shift this to 100 hertz. And use another device. Now we are going to do a very interesting thing. I'm going to add a phase difference of 90 degrees. So first of all, you'll see 2 different signals. Okay, which are shifted by, okay, let us remove that DC content first of all. You see that there are 2 signals which are phase shifted by 90 degrees. Let me change the color of this so that it is easier for you to see. So these are the 2 signals. Okay, I can trigger for channel A or channel B. Okay. Now if I want to find out the phase shift, what should I do? If I want to find out the phase shift, what should I do? Tell me. If I want to find out the phase shift between 2 signals, what is the procedure? Have you heard of Lissajous patterns? Guys,
No, sir.
Have you heard of Lissajous pattern?
Yes, sir.
So what is that Lissajous pattern? What you do is you simply have A by B. So your one of your, it is not time axis anymore. It is a plot of one waveform with respect to the other. So see what I've done. This is time base. This is A by B. It means that B, channel A, is plotted with respect to channel B. Okay. And what do you get? Guys, whenever there is a circle, it is a phase shift of 90 degrees. What if the phase shift is different? Let us see. If I introduce a phase shift of it is no longer a circle, it is an ellipse. Are you able to understand this? Guys, we'll just enlarge that
So-
ellipse. So how do you calculate that? How do you calculate from here? What is the phase shift? Okay, if it is negative phase shift, let us say this is minus 120. Let us see what happens. Okay, or maybe 30 degrees phase shift. Yeah, what has happened now? Okay, instead of going for 30 degrees, I'll go for 60 degrees. That will be similar to the figure that we have already seen earlier. Yes. So what is going on here? So by looking at the orientation of the ellipse, you can tell whether it is the phase shift is below 30 degrees or above, below 90 degrees or above 90 degrees.
90 degrees.
First of
Yes,
all,
sir.
okay. Now how to calculate the phase shift using this Lissajous pattern? This is what we are going to use extensively in one or two practical sessions. That is the reason why I'm concentrating on this. Please be attentive. So how do you calculate that? Any idea? Let me switch to a presentation where I can tell you this. Okay, just hold on for some time. Just hold on. Okay. So what do we get is, this is the one of the intercepts. This is another intercept. See where it is intersecting. Okay. Where A and B are intersecting. This is intersecting here. This is intersecting here somewhere. Okay. Now, can you find out the distance with respect to this base horizontal line? What is the distance? Okay, let us be a little bit more discreet here by introducing a signal of 90 degrees. So it will be more pronounced. Okay. So here I have the intercept, maximum intercept at here and at here. Minimum. This point and this point. How many divisions are there for this point? Guys, the edge of the ellipse is touching here, this particular. Answer the question, please.
Sir, you were not audible. Please, can you repeat once more?
Okay. What is the What is the number of? How many number of divisions are there? How many number of divisions are there at this highest point of this ellipse? How many divisions? Is it far from the horizontal line? How many divisions? 10?
Two.
Two divisions.
2 divisions.
One division, two. The intercept of this is exactly at 1 point, isn't it? Now, one division.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
So what do you have to do now is and we'll call this as B. Okay. Calculate sine inverse A divided by B. Try this. Put your calculator into degrees mode and calculate sine inverse A divided by B. This intercept, this intersection point divided by this intersection point, the distance. Yes. How many degrees do you get? Guys, come on. Tell me. Simple calculation. Sine inverse A divided by B. Sine inverse of the ratio A by B. Simple. It's oral calculation. How much is it? Guys, please be responsive. We are doing something very important here. Am I audible?
Sir, 30 degrees.
30 degrees. So you have found out a very nice way of computing the phase difference.
Yes, sir.
This is very, very interesting. Okay. So now, is it possible
Yes,
for you
sir.
to calculate the phase difference between two signals? Yes or no? No. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, always call this B, call this A. Okay. Now we'll do something different. I'll just switch this over to 120 and see what happens. Yes. Or maybe this is A, this is B, or the other way around. This is A, this is B. Okay, have you understood? Have you seen one particular thing that is being developed here? When the phase difference is between 0 to 90 degrees, when the phase difference is between 0 to 90 degrees, how is the ellipse oriented? Let us say it is 45 degrees. How is the ellipse oriented?
It's mixed in the first and the third
Endpoints,
quadrant.
yes, endpoints. The let us say the larger axis, major axis of this ellipse happens to be in the first and the third quadrant.
Quadrant.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
Whereas if the phase difference is above 90 degrees,
90.
let us see what happens. Yes. Now the major axis is in the
Second and the fourth quadrant.
fourth quadrant. First quadrant, the very first example was very simple. So I was in a position to get 30 degrees as the phase difference. Now how do you calculate this phase difference? Again, sine inverse A divided by sine inverse B. Okay. So just try to calculate that. Again, the same thing. It's 1 by 2. Sine inverse 1 by 2. Sine inverse 1 by 2 is what?
30 degrees.
30 degrees. But no, this is
My
yes, this is in the let us say the phase difference is more than 90 degrees. We know that by looking at the orientation
Yes.
of the ellipse. So you have to subtract this 30 degrees from 180 degrees. So when the ellipse
Yes,
is
sir.
when the ellipse is oriented like this, you make the calculation, same calculations, except for that whatever value that you get, you have to subtract it from 180. That gives you how much? 180 minus
So
30, 150.
150 degrees.
And we already have seen here that we have put it as, we have set it for 150 degrees. Now, have you understood how to calculate the phase difference properly?
Yes, sir.
Sure,
Yes, sir.
all of you? These are the most essential things which unfortunately is not explicitly taught to you. So I'm trying to cover up some loose ends. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that is all as far as the signals are concerned. Okay. You can have some other types of signals also, as we have already seen. If you have, if you look here, you have the power sources. So power sources, another important thing about power sources is, I'm just going to delete all this. Yes. Now many times you require a dual polarity power supply. Okay. So while simulating, what you have to do, either you can use this battery source, that is a DC power, like this, okay, connect them together, and the central point should be connected like this. What does this tell you? Now if I measure the voltage, let us place some resistors there. so that I can easily find out the voltage across them. I'll connect it here. This I'll connect here, and this I can connect like this. So what is this? If I measure it with a multimeter, again I have to put it here like this. All right. If I put it like this, I place the ground again. I have to measure the voltage between the ground and this point across R1. Similarly, I have to measure here like this. But you'll see that this is wrong. I have to do it like this. Okay. We are going to see what the voltages are. Yes, what do you get? Let me change this again a little bit. This will be. What do you get here? Guys, what do you see? Is it the same kind of power supply that we have been using, or is it different? Guys, please answer. Students, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So what do you see here? You have this point. Okay, if this is getting a little bit confusing, I'll put a probe, voltage probe here and here. And what do you see now? Let me do away with the unwanted parameters. Okay, what do you see? Is it the same as this, for example? What is the difference between these two circuits? Tell me, is it visible? All of you?
Yes, sir.
So what is the difference?
Negative value,
Yes.
negative voltage.
One important thing, the most important difference is that this is called as a unipolar power supply and this is called as a bipolar or dual power supply. It simply means that You are having 12 volts with respect to ground. That's it. You are having only a positive voltage here. But here in this case, you will be having a negative voltage with respect to ground. Are you getting this?
Yes, sir.
And
So
what is the total difference, voltage difference between these two terminals?
24 volts.
If I measure it like this, it will be exactly 24 volts. Obviously,
24
nothing great here.
Yes, sir.
So remember that how to generate a dual polarity power supply. Okay, this is very simple using multisim. You already have the components like this DC, but this can be replaced by a battery, and you can have your own dual polarity power supply. Okay, in case of rectifiers, how do you do that? Okay, let us have a look at it. Okay, so if I have source, if I want to rectify these signals, I'll be requiring a transformer. With center tap like this. Of course, I have to shift this to 230 volts and 50 hertz. Okay, this is one way of doing it. All right, and then whatever is the voltage that I get over here, secondary coil, primary coil, I can definitely have this ratio here, so that if this is, let us say, 100, so the voltage that I'm going to measure here with respect to center tap is about 11.5 volts. I'm going to give you a very quick way of designing a dual power supply. Very quick and dirty way, but many times it really works. So 1N4001 will also do. Interesting thing that we're going to do is this. Use an electrolytic capacitor for filtering. (1000 microfarads). We place load and see what happens. What do you see? Just going to remove the other parts. Okay. So what do you see here, guys? I'm getting 15 volt DC, 15.4, and negative 15.4.
Minus 15.
So this is the way in which you have to design or build a dual polarity power supply. Now, for operational amplifiers, almost always we'll be using dual polarity power supply. So for that reason, I want all of you to understand how to first of all generate this dual polarity power supply. Okay. Of course, I didn't go for any calculations. It was just a rough and quick way of doing it. You may be requiring to have specific voltages like plus minus 12 volts. So probably you may have to design. You may have to use a regulator over there, which if time permits, we'll see. Or maybe I think you have already started with the. You have done the regulators in your lower classes. Is it voltage regulators, linear voltage regulators? No. Yes or no, guys?
Yes, sir. No, sir.
So probably those regulators can be used to better. Of course, we have not seen anything related to the ripple content and also the rated load and all those kinds of things. But this should be a direct indication as to how to make a dual polarity power supply. Okay? I think we have already exhausted the time, so we'll stop here for today. Today's session was to make you more comfortable with multisim, to observe various different waveforms, find out their phase differences, find out their peak-to-peak amplitudes, how to measure the frequency. We have seen the Lissajous pattern for calculating the phase difference between the two signals. And lastly, what we did was we saw the generation or the design of a very rough crude design of a dual polarity power supply, which we will be using extensively for operational amplifiers. Okay? So this was basically to orient you towards how to use multisim with this particular course. Is that clear? Any doubts, any
Yes,
questions
sir.
to this point? If not, then we will stop. Tomorrow we'll continue with our regular content. Okay?
Yes, sir.